in bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow are so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people passing by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes.
For thousands of years, people have gathered under a grove of trees or an expansive sky at bedside or graveside to give thanks to God for the gift of life and the promise of life eternal. For thousands of years, people have been called together to holy places to say goodbye, to celebrate, and to remember a life well lived. For thousands of years, people have risked the catch in their throat, the quickening heart, the dampening eye, to be a witness to the presence of God at the sacred boundary between life and death. And so today we have gathered. On behalf of the Kennedy family and on behalf of Kenilworth Union Church, we welcome you into this sacred sanctuary and ask God's blessing over this gathering. Let us pray. Holy God, we cannot help but give you thanks. Gather up our hearts and minds, our stories and our tears, as we give thanks for the life of Stan Kennedy and commit to living in the light of his legacy. Let your ancient song of love dwell among us today anew, so that we might be strengthened to live aglow in your ever-widening pool of light, made known at the eternal boundary between life and death. Give us strength, give us love, give us courage, and wrap us up in the green, growing days of summer, with evening stars aglow and constellations to mark the journey home. Guide us just as you guided Stan all the days of his life. Guide him to your throne of love, and give us your grace as we bring before you the gift of his life. Be our peace that passes all understanding, our source of mutual love, and the possibility unfolding within our finite and expansive sacred lives. Amen.
First Corinthians. If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing.
Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always preserves.
And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. I'd like to welcome all of you who came today to honor Stan. Stan was a kind and loving husband to me. We were married in a leap year, and we had 12 leap year and 48 regular years. He loved his family. He loved his children, Carol and Mike. He was a kind and loving stepfather to my children. He loved all of our grandchildren, and he loved life. Stan did not want to leave this beautiful world. I want to thank my son-in-law and daughter, Ed Francis and Holly, for hosting Stan in their family room for 2 months so he didn't have to die in a foreign country like Northfield. He could die in Wilmette. Stan loved the fact that every morning Sophia and Ben Francis, who both are graduates and are working, would come in and wish him a good morning. Ben even came home at lunch sometimes to have a chat with Grandpa. It really brightened his day. Sophia would sit with him and hold his hand and quietly calm him many, many nights when the caretakers were there, but he loved her quiet presence. She also has a real talent for putting the TV on the right channel for golf or baseball. Friends of ours, Tom and Marina Iovaldi, came to see Stan a few weeks before he died. And when they came in, Marina remarked that there was a family of cardinals on the Francis driveway. And after they left, a few hours later, I got a poem that Marina wrote, and I'd like to read it. A family of cardinals flew to the bush next to the door of the hospice house of our dying friend. Their swooping and chirping lightened our mood. Their songs helped us refocus and remember our mission, to accept our friend's wilting body and applaud his strength and willingness to fight for life and respect for self and others, and to also find ways to assure him that there are others in the family, profession, and groups of friends who will take over the important causes when he's no longer here. Each of our lives has its own unique worth, but its value is doubled or tripled when connected to others. That is why we all speak community. Our goal is to remind him and to celebrate many communities of caring people he sought, then facilitated, enabled, reinforced. We will hold his hands and rub his arms and vow that we commit to pick up the torch and care for those he loved. By Marina Ivaldi. Thank you.
It is very hard to imagine a world without Stan Kendi in it. Though he slowed down physically these last couple of years, he was completely engaged mentally, and a couple of weeks before he passed away, he asked me who got the Kenilworth village manager position. He always wanted to know what was going on in the local government world. I was Stan's assistant from 1986 until 1990. He was both a tough boss and a great friend. Once you were in his assistant orbit, you and your family never left it. He was so proud of all of his assistants and staff members who went on to become city or county managers. David Lamarty in Highland Park, Bob Kiley in Lake Forest, me in Wilmette, Andrea Crawford in Maple Bluff and Elm Grove, Wisconsin, Sarah Purdy in Yates County, New York, and Rob Bahan in Winnetka. And he was thrilled when Dave Lamarty became the International City and County Management Association president in 2008, a very prestigious position that Stan held from 1982 to 1983. In fact, I met Stan in 1983 at an ICMA conference when I worked in Kansas City. At the time, I did not know this, but when you are an ICMA president, you have nonstop meetings and events at the conference. And yet, he took time to sit down with me, an intern, and talk with me about becoming a city manager. And this was not unusual for him. Bob Franz, who was a longtime friend and colleague of Stan's, told me Stan met with him on a Saturday morning, did not know him. They discussed city management. Stan gave him some books to read and then followed up a couple of years later to help him get a job. Stan would go out of his way to introduce you to everyone in his circle. Whether you were passing through Starbucks, attending a local government meeting, or having lunch with him, he would invariably run into someone he knew, and he would make sure you were introduced as well. And he would not just introduce you, he would give a mini bio of your background and accomplishments to the person you were meeting. Stan had a unique way of staying in contact with his former assistants. He would call our offices and ask to speak to the village manager. The secretary would ask who was calling, and he would respond, "The King of the North Shore," which of course was baffling for the person on the other end of the line the first time it happened. Sometimes he would call and disguise his voice, saying he was a resident who had a complaint for the village manager. One time when he did this to me, he adopted a very high-pitched voice and said he had a cable television complaint. And I decided to play along, and I was pretty rude to him. But this time, he seemed to be carrying the gag along longer than usual, and I finally realized it was not Stan. It really was a resident with a high-pitched voice who had a cable television complaint. I called him immediately after I hung up from the call, and we laughed so hard about that for many years to come. As Chick said, Stan loved Wilmette and everything about it, the brick streets, the street lights, the people. When interviewed by the Chicago Tribune in 1989 about Wilmette, he said simply, "It's Camelot." And that, of course, became the headline. After he moved to Northfield into a condominium, he would tell me what a mistake it was that he moved. And I would desperately try to convince him that it was the right move because he needed to be on one floor and he couldn't do the stairs anymore. But he persisted, so I finally asked him what he missed about his house. And he said, I love seeing the streets go on every night. I love hearing the fire engines go by. I love seeing the people walk down Lake Avenue. He just missed the day-to-day in the place he loved. He found a community of people wherever he went. I remember when he was going to Northwestern Hospital for his radiation treatment when he had prostate cancer many years ago. He would tell me about the people he had gotten to know who were there at the same time he was, all of them fighting cancer. He had gotten to know people his age, as well as young parents and children. He knew their names, their stories, and he worried about them. And he, of course, knew all of the staff that worked there by name. Stan loved deeply and broadly, whether it was his family, his friends, his colleagues, or a new community of people he just met. And we are all so fortunate to have been in this circle, touched by his humor, his empathy, his friendship, and his love. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bob Cohen. I'm Professor Emeritus of Economics at Northwestern University, or in line with what Heidi just said, Stan would usually introduce me as the Dean of Economics at Northwestern University. I want to express my deepest sympathy to Anne and to all of Stan and Anne's family on their loss. Stan and I met in the 1970s through our wives, who became close friends working together in the travel business. Over time, we found that despite our different backgrounds and occupations, we shared values and interests that made for an enduring friendship. Stan's life was truly an American success story. A boy from a small, isolated Nebraska town rises to become an admired city manager and to serve as president of the leading international association of local government professionals. As a teacher and mentor of young people, I'm naturally curious about what shapes their lives. Such curiosity led me and my wife on a pilgrimage to Sidney, Nebraska, when we were on a driving trip out west in 2021. Would we find in those Nebraska routes foreshadowings of Stan's remarkable journey? What we found was shocking. A plaque near the railroad station identified the place as Sinful Sidney, scourge of the Old West, toughest town on the tracks, a 24-hour boomtown famed for lawlessness, corruption, and lynchings. Today, the boom has turned to bust, and at midday, the town was deserted and quiet as a church mouse. It seems that Stan was fruit that fell far from this tree. But on reflection, perhaps the town's checkered past made him aware of the necessity of capable, honest civic leadership to create a successful community. And an intimate small town is the kind of place where a smart, ambitious young man could encounter a local newspaper editor who would encourage him to pursue a career in city management. Whatever their origins, Stan's adventurous disposition, his wit and charm, his genuine delight in interacting with all types of people carried him to a fulfilling life. These qualities were especially evident one afternoon we spent together years ago with family and friends at a wine tavern in Vienna, Austria. One of Stan's many idiosyncrasies was putting ice in his white wine. When he asked our Fräulein for ice cubes for his wine, she was offended by his gaucheness. Why would anyone want to tamper with fine Austrian wine by putting ice in it? But Stan turned on the charm, complimenting her on her smile, admiring her beautiful low-cut dirndl, an alpine peasant dress, and asking her all about her background. Soon she was more than happy to bring him tumblers of ice cubes and probably wanted to take him home with her. These taverns are known for their Gemütlichkeit, but Stan introduced them to the magic of Kennedykeit. Each time I return to Vienna, I see more natives putting ice cubes in their wine. And maybe incidentally, the alpine glaciers are disappearing, but I don't think we should blame Stan for that. Another occasion when I saw Kennedykeit at work was during a dinner at our home in Evanston. Among the guests was a Northwestern colleague interested in urban economics, whom I wanted to introduce to Stan, thinking that their overlapping interests would make for a lively conversation. At the time, Stan was city manager of Wilmette, and the Northwestern colleague was a resident of Wilmette. The conversation was lively, all right, but in a way I had not anticipated. My Northwestern colleague soon launched into complaints about various services in his area of Wilmette, putting Stan on the defensive and creating an uncomfortable atmosphere for everyone. Fortunately, Stan was able to diffuse the tension, not by giving ground, but by graciously recognizing the complaints and acknowledging that there were differences in views in the community. I imagine that Stan was accustomed to such encounters and had developed the ability to handle them with tact and calmness. I really admired and respected Stan's interpersonal skills, and I learned much from observing how he handled the challenges of social and business relationships. In the later years of our careers, we both sat on industry boards on which we felt like outsiders. Stan was appointed to the Government Accounting Standards Board, which is populated by lawyers and accountants who establish financial reporting standards for local governments. I served on a mutual fund board made up of executives of the nation's largest credit unions and Wall Street investment bankers. To become effective members of these boards, we had to gain the respect and trust of unfamiliar and suspicious colleagues. It was very valuable to me to share and compare these experiences with Stan and to have his support. My friendship with Stan also helped me persuade students to pursue careers in public service. Year after year, I would see my top students choosing jobs in finance and consulting in the private sector, where salaries are attractive and prestige is high. But private businesses cannot thrive without strong supporting communities, and strong supporting communities cannot develop without honest, effective leadership. These truths are too little appreciated, and our nation badly needs more Stan Kennedys. And not to be overlooked, Stan was just a lot of fun to be with. In the basement of the Kennedy home on Lake Avenue, Stan created one of the best man caves ever. It was filled with years of accumulated memorabilia and tchotchkes from Stan's professional, sporting, and family life and travels. Tchotchke, by the way, is a very expressive Yiddish word for objects that have no monetary value nor artistic merit, only sentimental significance. I contributed a fair share of naughty postcards to his world-class collection. One could spend hours rummaging through the treasure trove, and I imagine it was as happy a place for his children and grandchildren as it was for me. On the occasion of Stan's 90th birthday, I penned the following limerick to amuse him. From Sydney he came, such a pity, a place so backward and gritty. But he rose from the dust, championed good and the just, and boy, could he manage a city. For those of us lucky enough to someday join Stan in heaven, we can be sure that with Stan already there, heaven will be a better managed, more welcoming community than it ever was before.
Coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. I looked over your Jordan, and what did I see? Coming for to carry me home, a band of angels coming after me, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. If you get there before I do, coming for to carry me home, tell all my friends I'm coming too, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. The brightest day I ever seen, coming for to carry me home. When Jesus washed all my sins away, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Coming for to carry me home.
A reading from the Gospel of John. As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Now remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. No longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends, for everything that I learned from my Father I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit, fruit that will last, and so that whatever you ask in my name, the Father will give you. This is my command: love each other. The word of the Lord.
A reading from St. Francis of Assisi. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring love. Where there is offense, let me bring pardon. Where there is discord, let me bring union. Where there is error, let me bring truth. Where there is doubt, let me bring faith. Where there is despair, let me bring hope. Where there is darkness, let me bring light. Where there is sadness, let me bring joy. O Master, let me not seek as much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that one receives, it is in self-forgetting that one finds. It is in pardoning that one is pardoned. It is in dying that one is raised to eternal life. Amen.
Good morning, everyone. Bear with me. Let's see if my Face ID works. I've been crying this whole time. All right, it's working. So for those of you who don't know me or might have only seen me in the 1990s when I was 2'7", I'm a whole 3 feet taller now. I'm also Stan's grandson, Yuma Kennedy, one of 11 grandchildren. So while at a glance, I might not look exactly like Grandpa Stan, upon closer inspection, you'll see my funky purple shirt, nose hairs sticking out, as my girlfriend so kindly noticed this morning, and a ginormous, gigantic head, the head of a senator, as I'm told. Now you know, I'm Stan's grandson. So I know we're on a tight schedule. I think there's about 3 minutes, so I've allotted 2 for speaking and 1 for crying. So I'm going to try to keep that ratio on point. I have countless stories about Grandpa. And how wonderful he was. One quick one stands out. I moved back to the States after 4 years in Japan for college. My dad and brother were still in Japan, and so he took it upon himself to pack up the van and drive me down to Champaign. Little did we know that the dorm I was moving into was on the 4th floor with no elevator in August in Champaign, Illinois. So at the ripe age of 77 years old, he helped drag all my stuff up. That's the type of man he was. And that's what he did. He set the bar extremely high for all of us, for what it means to be a man, a father, a husband, a professional, and most importantly to me, a grandfather. So now I have to ask myself, and we have to ask each other, how do we say goodbye? How do we say goodbye to someone who's so monumental and influential in our life? I don't think you do. I think we continue the legacy instead. So this legacy can continue in a few ways. I think both through physical reminders of who he is, but also in how we show up to the world. So I promise I'm not starting a career as a stand-up or a prop comedian, but I have a few things that remind me of him and some lessons we've all learned. So first is an ear of corn. A little bit obvious, maybe a little too on the nose. representing his humble beginnings in Sydney, Nebraska, and his love for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. But also his love for his family and his friends, and always having an open seat at the table. A lot of great memories and meals with Grandpa and Grandma, and a lot of work shucking a lot of ears of corn in the backyard. And by the way, I have 4 of these, 4-pack at Jewel Osco. So maybe later we're going to auction these off for the Kennedy Scholarship Fund. So get your wallets out, everyone. Collector's item. Due to the venue and the fact that the publication isn't in circulation anymore, I don't have a Playboy magazine. But we all know Grandpa appreciated beautiful women. So I'll just leave it at that. The next I have is a belt buckle with his name on it. While Grandpa Stan was a very humble person, he was also very proud. And I think those can coexist in one person. And he's a great example of that. So I think it's a reminder to all of us to stay humble, to treat everyone with respect, but also be proud of who you are and what you represent. I promise this is almost over. Last item, of course, is a Starbucks cup. This is actually from Plaza del Lago, fresh out. And I got a latte just for him. But it's a reminder of his love for community and always greeting people with a smile, whether you've known him for decades or you're just meeting him the day of. He was always there with a smile and a friendly face. So let's keep his memory alive with reminders like this. But more importantly, I think it's about how you show up for others. Grandpa Stan left a void of kindness and compassion in this world, and it's up to all of us to fill it. This is an amazing group of people. He kept fantastic company. And this may be the last time many of us will see each other. But that doesn't mean we can't carry on his legacy together and separately. So if any group of people can do that, it's this group. So let's all try to be a bit more wonderful, as Stan was. When you see someone who needs a hug, like this guy, give him one. When you have the opportunity to treat someone to a nice meal, please do so. When there's a chance to do something for community, go for it. When you see someone that could use your mentorship or advice, please do. And when you see a stranger that could use a compliment or a nice smile, do as Grandpa Stan would do. When you know someone loves a snack or a drink, just go ahead and give them that snack. It'll make their day. And make sure to vote for the future of your country. So, let's all be a lot more like Stan the Man and make this world a better place. Thank you, everyone.
The height was not in our gene pool. I am on my tippy toes right now, so if you can't see me, at least you can still hear me. My name's Kelly Ann Hennessy, and I am Stan's eldest granddaughter. It took me longer than I cared to admit to realize mayor of Starbucks wasn't an actual job one could apply for. I spent years from the time I can remember walking into the Wilmette Starbucks with my grandpa feeling like a celebrity by proxy. Everyone seemed to know who the man was. He made everyone smile, laugh, put them all at ease while having a slice of lemon loaf and coffee in hand. I thought that must be the best gig there is. Over the years, I realized how lucky I was not only knowing the mayor of Starbucks, but to have him as my grandfather. He was someone who lit up every room he walked into, had a joke or cheeky comeback for most statements made. He loved his friends and family and community fiercely. He had a gift for making you feel like any problem you had could be solved and that he'd be there along the way to help. He's a pillar of the community while never forgetting his Nebraskan roots. I can't count on how many times I was told he used to have to wake up at 4 a.m. to milk a cow, or that the brick roads you still see around Wilmette are because of him. I also can't count how many times he called to tell me he loved me. He called me just to say hi or see what I was up to, told me he was proud of me, sent me a letter in the mail of photos he found of us while growing up, programs from graduations or school events. He kept everything. Speaking of tchotchkes, my house is full of them, so if anyone wants some, you're welcome. Come over. My grandparents always told a story of when my parents first let me at home with them for a couple nights as a baby. They were under strict instruction to hold my hand until I fell asleep. I did not fall asleep right away, nor did my grandpa spend the whole night waiting until I fell asleep to let go. Neither of us were actually perfect, even though we'd both like to believe elsewise. But I'm thankful I was able to return the favor at times, to hold his hand and sit next to him at some of his more vulnerable moments, or just while he was falling asleep. I will never take for granted the relationship I had with him, and I know many of you won't either. It's hard for me to process living in a world without him. He was a best friend, and I will always be thankful for the time I had with him. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Stan's daughter, Carol Ann. I struggled with how I was going to define a 60-year relationship with my father in a matter of minutes. However, as I prepared for today, I came across 2 letters I believe exemplified our relationship. After reading these 2 letters a few times, I realized that they were literally written within a few months of each other. I feel that they define our relationship back then and still to this day, so I'd like to share them with you. Dear Dad, it's 1:40 in the morning, and I can't stop crying. I just want to pick up the phone and call you because I want to tell you how much I love you. I've been sitting in bed for the past hour thinking about you and why I love you so much, and the thought of never having you around is something I can't imagine. I've been thinking about everything we've been through, you and me, you and I. Highland Park, you making popcorn after bedtime and the smell lingering up in Mike's in my room, running down to get a bowl, which I know made Mom mad. Pretending to be asleep on the couch when I was little just so you would pick me up and carry me to bed. The policeman's picnic, family road trips to visit all our grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins. Our Saturday morning routine of taking Mike and I downtown Highland Park for a stop at Woolworth's for a full bag of candy, a bite at Stars Cafe or Stashes, a pop-in at Sunset Foods to visit the Corteses, and a quick stop in the City Hall for you to grab something. Mike and I felt so incredibly proud of you, and were in awe at all the people that would greet us that morning. Because of the respect you had earned from the people in the town, you were the best city manager. Life was not without its struggles. The tears we cried together about the move to Wilmette, the divorce, trying to combine 2 families, and of course my struggle freshman year at New Trier and transferring to Regina. I will never forget your love, dedication, and support you gave me during that time and helping me get back on track. You were there for me when I really needed you, and that is one of the main reasons I thank God he gave you to me for my father. Now time has flown for good, and sometimes it scares me. I'm now not a little girl, but a 31-year-old woman with a wonderful husband, 2 children, and number 3 on its way. And even though I am very happy with my family and I am financially independent, I know in my heart I will always be your girl, your little girl. Dad, I don't know what your beliefs are, but I pray that we will always be together and that God has a place after this life where we will and our families be together forever. I still hold this prayer in my heart. I love you, Carol Ann. And so I got a letter from my dad, and the reason I have this letter is because my dad always re-gifted everything that you would give him at Christmas time. And so that's why I have the letter he wrote me. And this was written June 12, 1995, and it was right before I had Amy, and the letter I wrote him was right the same time. Dear daughter, I want to write this letter to you now because I don't want something to happen to me that happened when my father died. I never felt like I got to tell him goodbye. I'm going through a very difficult time right now, and I feel sad because I want to live to be an old man in his 90s, which he did. I hope that I will be able to do that. I am so happy that I have such a wonderful daughter like you. You are doing such a wonderful job with my great, wonderful grandchildren, Kellyanne and Michael. Thanks for my father's name. I so enjoy Kellyanne, and Michael is really a wonderful child. Greg is a great husband, and I am glad you chose him. I'm looking forward to getting to know my new grandchild in September. Your faith has certainly been good for you, and I congratulate you. I wish my faith was as strong as yours. You have been wonderful to me, and I love and respect you very much. All my love my heart can give your dad.
Dearest family and friends, I really appreciate being able to celebrate Dad's life together with you today. Wow, you set the speech bar really high. I'm not sure if I deserved to go last year. But listening to Chick and Heidi and Bob's speeches, I was taken by noticing traits that he instilled in me. I was taken by noticing traits that Dad instilled in me that I hadn't considered of adding into my speech or thinking them out as much as I would if you hadn't shared those. Thank you. I was never a social animal like my father in that regard, but in terms of being genuinely interested, engaging with all kinds of people, and the ability to create a rapport, diffuse tensions, and find true enjoyment in that, I definitely was gifted with that from my father. So I wrote a 10-page speech here, and that's the short version. Of course, I'm not going to read all that. So I honestly don't know if this simple sight gag is something, absently putting your glasses on upside down is something I copied from my father or he from me. But I started doing it in college as a way to sometimes break the ice. And then many years later, I found a photo of him doing the exact same thing at a party in Wilmette. So perhaps we both came upon it independently. We did share a good sense of humor. I'll move on from that. But after, sometime not too long after my parents split up, Dad visited me and my sister at 1526 Highland Avenue in Wilmette. And after we headed to our rooms to get ready for bed, Dad came in to say goodnight. I was watching Monty Python's Flying Circus on an old small black and white TV and the old UHF bandwidth. Dad thought it was cool that I was watching that. He liked that I liked it, and it seems small, but that was important to me. His support. Thoroughly unwavering support of me and what I chose for my life. It's the most important gift he gave to me. Always engaged and always involved, even if it didn't match what he normally understood, including way too active an imagination where I woke him up in the middle of the night to help me with the fluorescent small-sized dinosaurs that were crawling around on my bed. He couldn't possibly understand. He didn't have the same imagination, but he worked hard to comfort me and tried to understand the best he could. In early January, I put in for vacation so that I at least possibly could attend Kellyanne and Joe's wedding in Ireland. As it turned out, it allowed me to spend nearly the entire last week of Dad's life with him together. And yes, I appreciate so much Holly and Eddie hosting him and being able to visit with chick and dad together, my sister and dad together. I like to think that he wanted to have that extra one-on-one time with me. But I also suspect, subconsciously, he may have wanted to just celebrate one more July 5th. Of course, our family have many special memories of July 4th. But July 5th, that's the day the bikini was invented. It's a fact, it's a fact. He was a fan. He was also a fan of the Chicago Bears. And on a cold January Sunday in Soldier Field, he and I witnessed the birth of the wave. I bet nobody knows about this, right? So Dad pointed to the opposite side of the stadium where people were kept rising and sitting back down, slowly moving across as a slow-moving wave, making its way towards us. 2 minutes later, it reached us, and I saw at its head a scantily dressed woman, somehow not freezing, and while she bouncily passed by. This was the advent of the wave. I'd say I was about 10, and I didn't really get the whole vibe, but thought to myself, this is important. Dad was a fan, as Bob alluded to as well, thank you. And though I too became a fan, what if I never had? Well, this man would have supported me just the same. And it's also important to note that Dad was a fan of women in just about every sense, wholly supportive and dedicated to their success, both within and outside the family. I don't know what percentage of men in 1960 were helping their wives with diaper changing duties, but he was one of them. It was during one such session in Dalhart, Texas, when I was 6 months, that led to his first trip taking me to an ER. He had briefly turned his back to get a safety pin when I seized the chance to shift myself off the edge of the crib while my leg was caught up in the wooden bars. A fractured leg, and I heard from Mom on more than one occasion how upset and hard he was on himself about that. And I'm sure we can all very well imagine that. He was a deeply, deeply caring man. I put this man through a lot of stress. I mean, I'm talking about a dozen trips to Highland Park emergency room for broken bones and other serious perils, where he took me every time, save one that was truly time critical, and Mr. John Diosegi, our most beloved childhood neighbor and uncle in spirit, got me there. Mr. D also resting in peace. Of course, the potential for that your wild child may get seriously injured is just a portion of the stresses I put on him. But he continued to be stubborn, enduring the trials and supporting me nonetheless. He didn't just let me be me, he encouraged me strongly and consistently to live my life according to patterns that were very different from a man who decided in high school to become a city manager and walk that road straight to the top. He didn't pass judgments or make demands that would only serve his own predilections. What he did, however, press for was honest effort, integrity, fair play, and equal treatment and opportunity for all. These were centerpieces at the core of his character. He impressed upon me teaching examples through stories of Abraham Lincoln and his perseverance, the courage and fortitude of Jesse Owens, one of Dad's true heroes, and quotes by statesman and abolitionist Frederick Douglass. As an expression of his support of me following the beat of my own drum in my early 20s, he sent me one of many, many letters he sent over the years, included a quote by the statesman. I prefer to be true to myself, even at the hazard of incurring the ridicule of others, rather than to be false and incur my own abhorrence. There were many such sayings and writings that Dad sent to me as encouragement. In the end, it is very important that we have a strong sense of self. I know that Dad was at peace in a manner alluded to in another Frederick Douglass quote, "The soul that is within me, no man can degrade." I have poignant stories that illustrate Dad walking the walk of what he espoused, what I witnessed throughout childhood. But the time to address you here is short, so I'll leave you with two very brief memories. The last time I had a conversation with Dad, Carol and I were the only ones in the room with him. And I was getting ready to leave and letting him know I would be there soon again to visit. It was the last time he was able to actually converse. He always was hearing what I was saying and what we were all saying to him and through his last day. I'm confident of that. But in terms of the conversation, that was the last one. So giving him my love, telling him I'd be back soon to see him again. He opened his eyes wide and kept his mouth somewhat agape while he was waiting for a reaction to the joke he just cracked. Left me with some humor. It was a good one, Dad. And then I thought, what is my first memory with Dad? What's that very first conversation I ever had? And I think I will share that at the next venue. Just want to say, a lot of people do say they were blessed to have the best father anyone could have, and I'm sorry to say to you all, in this case, it's true.
Just a closer walk with thee. Granted, Jesus, if you please, daily walking close to thee. Let it be, dear Lord, let it be. I am weak, but thou art strong. Jesus keeps me from all wrong. I'll be satisfied as long as I walk. Let me walk close to thee. This world of toils and snares, if I falter, Lord, who cares? Who with me my burdens share? None but thee, dear Lord, none but thee. Oh, when my feeble life is o'er, time for me will be no more. Guide me gently, safely home, to the kingdom shore, to thy shore. Oh, just a closer walk with thee. Oh, granted, Jesus, Lord, if you please, daily walking close to thee. Oh,
Had I ever met a city manager before Stan Kennedy, I cannot remember anymore. The name Stan Kennedy and city manager are now synonymous. All else fades from view. And have you ever met someone so passionate about their work? Even in the last weeks of his life, Stan recounted for me the litany of his life's work, early days, and the way one thing led to another, and the friendships he made, and the things he was most proud of. Something about Stan reminds me of this. In monastic communities, monks take a vow of stability. A vow of stability. It means they promise to stay where they are. They commit to live, to stay in place, and to be in community that forms exactly where they are. They won't ask to be moved to another community. They won't just leave the monastic community. They grow where they are planted and set down roots and do not wander. They do not move from place to place. They commit to one another regardless of what happens next. And there's something about Stan's life that feels akin to these vows of stability. He grew where he was planted. He set down roots. He committed to this place and these people. He committed to you. His friends, his family, his colleagues, his residents, regardless of what happened next, he said yes to you. For 60 years, he lived here, nestled between lake and farm, a city to manage, and a community to call home. A vow of stability. A vow of stability that brought balance and long-lasting friendship. One person says that we should pray in this way. Let us not fade from one another's vision. Let us not become unknown to one another. In his vow of stability, Stan committed to you and to this community. He did not let you fade from his view. He did not let you become unknown to him. In fact, he did not let you become unknown to one another either, always finding joy in connecting you to someone that he knew, always gathering one more into the fold, always seeking to bind together the parts that might otherwise be torn asunder. Let us not fade from one another's vision. Let us not become unknown to one another. Or maybe Stan's life is more akin to this prayer by Reinhold Niebuhr. Reinhold Niebuhr writes, "O God, who hast bound us together in this bundle of life, give us grace to understand how our lives depend on the courage, the industry, the honesty, and the integrity of our fellow human beings, that we may be mindful of their needs, grateful for their faithfulness, and faithful in our response to them." With Stan, there is part of us that feels bound together. We feel as if, across the many years of his life, his prayer for us was about being bound together to our fellow human beings, mindful of their needs. It feels as if he prayed again and again that he might be faithful in his responsibility to his fellow human beings, and so he was. That he was open to the ways in which his life, in which our lives depended on the courage, integrity, honesty, and industry of others. And so, whether he gathered at the village hall or in his living room or at Plaza del Lago with coffee brewing all around him, he offered us the grace to understand and to see again that our lives depend on one another and that we should, above all else, remain connected to community, calling one another together, being present to one another, and telling good stories in one another's presence, sharing in one another's lives. South African Bishop Desmond Tutu puts it this way: "My humanity is bound up in yours, for we can only be human together." Even the common words of the Lord's Prayer that we will share today give us an echo of Stan's ethic. It's not "my Father who art in heaven," but "our Father." It's not give me my daily bread, but give us our daily bread. There is something shared about the vision that Stan set before you. There is something critical about our care for one another. There is something about showing up together for one another. That it's essential to gather, that our common vision for village life has room for justice and responsibility and tending to the things that others might otherwise leave unattended to. There is something, too, in his longing to organize, to make things right, to mend. Maybe his prayer was akin to the one by Mercy Odeoye in Ghana, who prays, "Spirit of unity, transform our divisions and reshape our vision." Stan's passion, his passionate work and persistent voice led change in the village and among family and friends. Spirit of unity, transform our divisions and reshape our vision. Or maybe it's like Chicago's poet and Pulitzer Prize-winning author Gwendolyn Brooks, who suggests we are each other's harvest, we are each other's business, we are each other's magnitude and bond. May this spirit of Stan Kennedy go with you and live within you and between you as you continue his love in this life. In thanksgiving for the life of Stan Kennedy, let us pray. Holy God, we ask you to draw near. Draw near as we experience the gift of life, and we hold on to the tender strength that we have known in Stan Kennedy. We give you thanks that just as he showed us the gift of community and connection and friendship, we too have an opportunity again to be surrounded by a community of love now. Let us lean on one another, those who loved and were loved by Stan. In his living and in his dying, he was committed to seeing us eye to eye, meeting us in friendship and grace, sharing in the stories and memories that made life worth living. And so we ask, God, awaken your spirit within us, a spirit of comfort, a spirit of contentment, a spirit of peace, as we hand over to you the love and light that was Stan Kennedy all the days of his life. We give you thanks for that crisp October day when Stan was born, and for the quiet summer night on which he died. 92 years, thanks be to God. For the family farm in Myrna, Nebraska, and for the love that raised him in the comfort of community. For his parents and his sisters, for rising before dawn to tend to the farm chores, for the gift of growing up with friends by his side on the football team and on the basketball court, in every field and on every turf, another friendship forged, another connection made. We give you thanks for the life-changing conversations that directed him in life, for his listening ear, his compassion, honesty, and the mutuality of friendship, for his time in the National Guard, for his years of study in public administration and leadership, and his ability to weave a career together by tending to the complex needs of a village. We give you thanks for his family, for Anne, Michael, Carol Ann, Holly, Nancy, Cleo, Georgina, for the grandchildren, and for a great-granddaughter, all who brought renewal and a spark of light and love in the last decades of his life. The gift of love was painted across the canvas of his life. The wild mercy and grace of community and friendship tethered him to this life in ways that many aspire to but few find. And so, God, we ask for his integrity, for his persistence, and for the way he remembered us. May we now remember him. In his presence, we knew an ocean of love. In his presence, more than any of us deserve. We give you thanks, O God. Point the way home for Stan and point the way ahead for us. Set your deep love within us so that the saints of light are just a song away, and let us imagine for Stan an expansive place of welcome, a heavenly house with many rooms, a banquet hall of tender reunion, where friendship and love are made known in the mystery of life beyond life. Hear our praise and our gratitude, and hear us as we lift up in faith the prayer you teach us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, now and always. Amen. Seated. The words of blessing now and the sung benediction will conclude our worship service. I will lead Stan's family out of the sanctuary so they can gather their belongings and they can meet you at the reception. The address is on the back of the bulletin. It's at the Lakeview Center on Gilson Park Drive, and they look forward to receiving you there. As you go from this place, may the love of God, which is stronger than death, bind you together. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord be kind and gracious to you. May the Lord look upon you with favor and give you peace, now and always. Amen.
May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. The sun shine warm upon your face. The rain fall soft upon your field. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord cause his face to shine upon you and give you peace. May the road rise your back, the sunshine warm upon your face, the rain falls soft upon your field, and until we meet